I'm Nick Snow, watching Government for Oil and Gas Journal in Washington, D.C. It was easy to remember the bad old days when the U.S. had new oil, old oil, and a small refiner bias amid the kerfuffle after the U.S. Department of Commerce's Bureau of Industry and Security ruled in late June that condensate qualifies as an oil product for export purposes in some cases. The differentiation's value was obvious. U.S. crude oil exports are heavily restricted. Oil product exports aren't. So while Congress argues over whether the nation's significantly improved crude oil production outlook means more exports should be allowed, many U.S. refiners are shipping more of their products to foreign countries. BIS operates under strict confidentiality, speakers noted at the U.S. Energy Administration's recent conference. They said its crude oil definition was adopted from old oil price and allocation regulations, and the distinction apparently is based on whether the condensate has passed through a distillation tower. Where might this upgraded concentrate wind up? There's a diluent market in South America where a lot of heavy crude is produced, said John R. Hours, Executive Vice President at Turner Mason & Company, Consulting Engineers at the EIA conference. But I believe most of it would go to Asia for petrochemicals. This all made David J. Bardeen, who was a federal energy official during the Carter administration, remember the small refiner bias and the problems it caused. The justification was that a number of small refineries, mostly in California, couldn't compete effectively for crude oil and potentially would be driven out of business, he told OGJ on July 21st. But it opened a loophole for people who'd never been in the refining business to bring crude in. The provision was part of the 1973 Emergency Petroleum Allocation Act. Refineries with less than 175,000 barrels a day of processing capacity were granted extra entitlements, which gave them lower marginal costs than larger plants, according to the University of Texas at Austin's Center for Energy Economics. It actually made smaller, less efficient refineries more profitable, and construction of these plants boomed. Most of the new capacity was in the form of unsophisticated hydro-skimming plants with less than 30,000 barrels a day of crude distillation capacity, CEE said in a case study at its website. The mindset was to protect American consumers, Bardeen said. Politicians liked the idea, but controls actually had little effect on prices, which were determined on world markets. BIS simply found an opportunity in late June to increase U.S. petroleum exports, he continued. I think the U.S. statutory restrictions for exporting crude oil are very questionable, Bardeen said. Strange, sometimes bad results occur with good intentions. We try to protect consumers, but miss an opportunity to have a more efficient market. That's Watching Government for this week. In Washington, I'm Nick Snow for Oil and Gas Journal.